Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 3 of Avengers Assemble, called Ghost of a Chance. And I gotta say, I think this was something of an improvement over the previous episodes. Now that the stage has been set, they can kind of get into the story a little bit more, get into the characters a little bit more. It's still not exactly the deepest of shows, but it does its job, and it does a serviceable job of it. Now, I will give this episode some credit. There were some genuinely very funny moments. I like how Tony kind of razzes Falcon about having pit stains on his costume, and the Hulk's little glass menagerie of glass animals. That was cute. It doesn't really make sense, but the idea of the Hulk kind of being the bull in the china shop who doesn't actually want to break anything. I mean that's a fun idea. It was cute, but they handled it well. And I like how the Avengers are all just sort of particularly Tony, are just blatantly hazing Falcon. I guess hazing might be banned on might be technically banned on most college campuses, but apparently it's a-okay at Avengers Tower. And I mean, just look at the whole thing of Tony dumping all that crap in Falcon's room. That's totally like a college prank. Only he was actually serious about it. I mean, what is it? The University of Michigan, that's very famous for doing all kinds of crazy things. Like somehow, I think one year they managed to put a car on top of a spire somewhere on campus or something like that. But anyway, looking at the villains of this episode, the Space Phantoms. These are actual villains from the comics, but they're very obscure. I think basically they popped up briefly a couple of times in the 1970s, and then they appeared again briefly during the Avengers Forever miniseries, I'm sure it was. It was whatever it was. It was the thing with the Destiny War. And honestly, that was just sort of Kurt Busiek, one of a very notable Avengers author and major fanboy of Marvel continuity. That was him. Honestly, that was him kind of taking some pages to go out and play continuity police when he really didn't need to. He was just clearing up some odd contradictions, just some comics from the 70s that him and maybe only a handful of other people ever really gave a damn about. But he was such a good writer of Avengers that people would really forgive him that sort of thing. But anyway, as I said, the Space Phantoms, not really very well known. Again, from that appearance in Avengers Forever is the only thing I've ever read of them. And they're really just, in the comics, more just like sort of these weird looking guys from space. Here they're made into sort of creepy shadow critters, which frankly I think serves them much better. They're much more, well, they're in the comics they come across as kind of ridiculous. Here in the show there's some genuine menace to them. Unfortunately, it's as the Avengers point out, these guys may be able to copy the Avengers' powers and appearance, but they don't have their skills, and honestly they don't really have a whole lot of good sense either, because there was no good reason for the one that had replaced Captain America outing himself to Falcon at that point. I mean, he could have just easily gone, "Hey, what's that?" and then knocked Falcon out when he turned his head, or if he'd been really smart, jammed a knife in his back. But no, he had to go and do that. Do the whole, ha ha ha, I'm a bad guy, you have no chance to survive, make your time nonsense. And of course, this blew up in their face. Now, of course, this is obviously aimed at a young audience, so there was going to be no jabbing anybody in the back or the neck or anything with a knife or anything like that. But, I just sort of hate plot-required villain stupidity. But, what are you going to do, right? Anyway, speaking of, questionable things in the plot, why exactly would Tony have revealed to Falcon where some of the emergency stop stuff on his armor was? I mean, I know Falcon is sort of Tony's man. He was basically kind of Tony's guy at S.H.I.E.L.D., so it makes sense that Tony would have revealed certain information to him, but that critical information like that about his armor, that's the sort of thing that I imagine Tony would share that with Pepper Potts. I really just can't see him sharing that with Falcon. And also, I gotta say though that the whole thing with that they did with the Red Wing and creating the vortex, that was just such complete and utter BS. I mean, I know it's ridiculous to complain about comic book science in a comic book TV show, but again, that's just seems so ridiculous, or at least more ridiculous than I'm willing to allow for this show to go. Now, I will say though, that big fight at the end, I absolutely love stories where you have a big old lineup of good guys on one side and another line of bad guys facing off against each other with a big line drawn down the middle. I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but that's just pure comic book goodness right there. And of course, the other guys on the other side of the line are evil copies of the heroes. And again, that's stuff that I just absolutely eat it up. I love it. And I gotta say, that fight at the end, the action, the way the heroes were fighting the evil copies of themselves, all really nicely well done. Also, give Hawkeye some credit. He did definitely get in some really nice digs and some fun ragging on Tony and other people in this episode. So I certainly thought that was well done. And apart from that, I really don't have a huge amount to say about this episode. Again, it was a reasonably good story, serviceable in many places. It took an existing Marvel villain and reinvented them in a way that actually makes them better and more interesting than in the comics. We don't see that too much, but it does happen. And just overall, it delivers a reasonably entertaining episode that's worth the 20-some minutes of your time that it takes to watch. And, some days you can't really ask for much more than that. Anyway, guys, that's everything that I have for you this time around. So as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.